Hi guys, so this morning I'm filming a Q&A video. It's still kind of chilly on the outside. It feels good to have a throw over my legs here and the sweatshirt, but it's beautiful out there. The sun's out, the birds are singing. My favorite bird, the wood thrush, has finally arrived. Just the other day I heard it. One of the most beautiful sounds, and I'll try to do a sound clip on here. I'm not sure that it will come through the microphone. I hear it right now, but you guys might not hear it. And also the Baltimore Orioles have arrived along with the rose-breasted grosbeaks. I hear some warblers singing in the trees these days. And I saw a veery hopping around this morning back here. Such a fun time of the year. So let's get to the questions. If you're new here, I usually do a monthly Q&A where I try to answer some of the questions that are left in the comment section. My niece usually gets the questions together for me. I haven't even had a chance to look at them, but I'll do my best to answer them. I'm going to do something a bit different today. I'm not sure that I'll always do it, but I told my niece to get the bottom or the last comment from every video in here too. And if you guys are familiar with YouTube, you know that the negative ones always end up at the bottom. I'm not sure how that works, but somehow YouTube can sort that. But I thought it would be kind of interesting today to address those, and it's actually good for me to see what people are saying, even if it's more in a negative way. It can be a form of, constructive criticism, or it's just interesting to me to see what people say. So let's get to the questions. The first video is from last month's Q&A. The first question here is Helena Blignot saying, I just love your videos, thank you. I was wondering about your skirts. I struggle to find skirts that cover my knees as I have quite long legs. Do you adjust the length of yours, or is it a standard size? I do get a lot of questions about my skirts that I wear. Well, first of all, I'm a pretty short person. I'm only 5'2", so it's usually not a problem for me to go buy a knee-length skirt, and it will, for the most part, cover my knees. But I have also learned, if you're handy with a sewing machine, buy a maxi skirt, a long skirt, and just shorten it to the exact length that you want. That's also an idea. But otherwise, I don't really have any tips for you. I kind of envy you with having longer legs. I always wished I was longer, but I'm sure it has its cons too. Probably in this case, if you're looking for skirts that are a bit longer, you could also try the midi ones. Those come, for me, they're almost too long, kind of that weird length that doesn't really look good on a short person. But for the most part, I don't have a hard time finding skirts that I'm, comfortable in. The Faithful Farmer Mama says, talking about your grid lines in the windows, have you ever thought about just taking them out for good? Our windows, new around 2015, do not have any type of lines on them. We love the openness. I have tried that already, and I don't know, is it just kind of, the habit of having them in there, kind of used to it, that I just feel kind of adds a country charm to our home if they're in there. Trust me, they're a pain, so I must really like them to keep them in there. I've also thought about, which this would really take some time, I did it on one window where one of our, grids actually broke, and I just went ahead and painted the lines on there. That's always an option, especially if you have old windows and it's not that big a deal to put paint on them. But I'll try to put a picture on the screen here of that window that I did that in, and you can't really tell just from looking at it first glance. It just looks like all of the rest. But I guess I should try it again with just taking them out and seeing if I like the openness of it. Nancy Bedell says, what white paint do you use in your home that does not yellow? I've said this before on my channel often, but Do It Best brand paint is often what my go-to paint, and it's simply because our local hardware carries it. There's other good kinds out there. Valspar I've used from Lowe's, and many others. Thankfully, I can say there's not any yellowing going on in our home, because there is a lot of white in there. I have had issues with that already happening with furniture, so I think it kind of depends on what surface you put it on more than the actual paint. Inspired by Design says, I was hoping to see what paint sprayer you use, but you forgot to link it. Sorry about that. I probably said I would and I didn't. Could you reply to my comment and tell me which DeWalt sprayer you own? Thank you. Sure, I'll link it down below, and this time I promise I will. But it is a DeWalt, and I love it. I got it from Amazon. Robin Armoto says, do you have a mailing address for one to send a card or gift? Yes, I do. I have it down below in the description box, and I do get gifts and cards from you guys, and I really appreciate it. I don't do videos on, sharing what I get. I just kind of chose to not do those, but it does not go unnoticed. Like I've said before, I'm just blown away by the kindness of you guys. It just warms my heart when I get stuff on the mail, and I've gotten some amazing things, a card or a letter, gifts, but thank you for all of that. Bobcat says, do you have options for refilling your candle holders? The only reason I don't buy them is I would have a hard time throwing them away once they burn down. I would be willing to ship them back if that were an option. I don't presently do that. I like your way of thinking though, to reuse something. Just for my own personal use, if I like a container that a candle is in, I will, just wash it after the candle has burned down and use it for something else. A lot of our candles are in pint jars or the other little jar size. And those make great little, vases. You can slap a cute little label on them or paint them. So there's definitely some other uses for jars. So getting to the bottom comment here from this video is Kathy Sargent saying, where is my candle? When I first saw this, I thought, oh no, is this still a Christmas nightmare here? We had such a hard time over the holiday season this past year getting some of the orders to you guys. Still feel so bad about it. A lot of them were, weeks late or just maybe never got them, and we ended up, doing a lot of refunding. I always said if every season was like this last one was, like holiday season, I probably wouldn't even have an Etsy shop. It was very frustrating. But I spoke to my niece about this situation, and this was a Valentine's Day candle. And initially we had actually forgotten to include it with your order, Kathy. And we had just separately sent it then because you had let us know through Etsy, which, by the way, that is the best way to let us know. If you guys have any problems with any orders, message me through Etsy. We always get those messages and we answer them. It's not a good way to try to communicate through YouTube here, of course, but it just happened that I guess I got this comment here. But my niece had sent one out separately to you and it came back to us, so I imagine the address probably wasn't right or something. And we had tried to get a hold of you through Etsy, messaging. I think she had messaged like 2 or 3 times and never got an answer. So I'm sorry about that. We just ended up refunding you for the candle. Getting to the next videos here is the weekly food prep video. Nancy says, oh my gosh, everything looks so good. Thank you. Just one question, how do you stay so thin? Well, I, first of all, don't dwell too much on my weight, but I did weigh myself here recently, hadn't in years. And I think I weigh more than I ever did, actually. But growing up, my sister and myself were always really on the skinny side. In fact, my mom at one point had made us drink some kind of compound liquid stuff to try to probably fatten us up. I don't know, but it was terrible. I'll never forget that taste, and I don't really think it even worked. But I guess it's probably just in the genes. I feel like the older I get, I kind of have to watch a little bit more what I eat, but I do it also to try to stick to whole foods and stay healthy, I guess. Elmore says, do you like your butcher block countertops? Are they hard to keep looking nice? I love my wood countertops. I had done a video on how I redid them, and I'll try to link that up above here or down below. And it was actually kind of nightmarish at the time, but it was so worth it. I again love them. I always am careful on them though. I don't just directly cut on them. I use cutting boards. It's not really an actual butcher block, a heavy duty, thick, what like a butcher block to me is, what comes to mind is an actual huge cutting board where you don't even use a separate cutting board when working on it. But they're not hard to, so far I haven't even done anything with them ever since I redid them. I'm trying to think, was that last year or the year before? I'm so bad with time frames sometimes, but and I think if I were to actually, give them a fresh look or whatever, I'd probably just apply another coat of maybe the Annie Sloan Clear Wax. That really seems to repel any moisture. But yeah, I just love the look of wooden countertops. Now the ones we have on the island and the drop counter and then over by the refrigerator, I've talked about this before, but those are actually wooden too, and I just made them to look like kind of like marble. It's been that way for years, and it's starting to peel off, especially on the island since that's the surface that we use the most. And I was to Menards here the other evening, and I saw the perfect countertop that I eventually want to replace those wooden ones with. I think it was a quartz countertop. It was mostly white with kind of grains of gray in it, kind of looking like the ones we have now, but just the real thing, I guess. So eventually we do want to replace those wooden ones, but I think the wooden ones by the sink and the rest of the countertop I'll always keep. I just, yeah, again, love that look. Gail Murphy says, Mary, I'm curious, with you having been Amish, when did you learn to drive a car? You seem very confident when you were driving. Did John have to learn too? I never had my driver's license until about 11 years ago when we left the Amish, but John had a stage in his life when he would have been driving. If you're familiar with the Amish, you know they have a stage there before they join the Amish church where they are able to kind of go and experience things. So he had, you know, a vehicle when he was probably from around 18 to maybe 23, something like that. So for him, it wasn't that hard to kind of relearn. But for me, you know, it wasn't that we left the Amish to go get a car, you know, to get around with. We were very comfortable with our horse and buggy and bicycles, but looking back now, you know, having the convenience of a car, I can't see how we did without. It's just so handy to get from point A to B, you know, with having a vehicle. And I have discovered I really love to drive. I'm fascinated with the power of an engine. I've kind of gotten into some of the classic cars too. My dad is really into that. That's probably somewhere I get it from, but it kind of stems from, I love antiques and old things, and I always think, you know, the stories they could tell if they could talk. So when I'm out driving in a classic car, I try to go back in time and imagine, you know, I'm back maybe in the 70s or whatever, and just think of the stories that this car could tell, what all it has been through. I know it's probably kind of weird for me to have an interest in something like this, but I can't help it. I'm just fascinated with it. It's so much fun. Kim Marnado says, Mary, you just amaze me. I love watching your cooking videos. Well, thank you. I've always had to work outside the home, so my cooking techniques are very different from yours. I'm all about convenience, but unfortunately that means my meals aren't nearly as wholesome as yours. Have you ever thought about writing a recipe book? But yeah, I totally get that. With having work outside the home, you would not have time to actually put a meal together from scratch. And sometimes I'm even in that situation where I'm like, let's just order pizza tonight, or order in, because you can't always have the time. It takes a lot of time to try to cook healthy. It really does. And I don't want to ever seem like I always get it done perfectly, because I don't. I try to. It's one of my goals, but definitely don't always get it done. And as far as writing a recipe book, I've never really thought about it myself, but I've been after my sister to do it. I should remind her of this, because I feel she's a really good cook, and I feel she would have a lot of good recipes in fact, I get a lot of my recipes from her. So it's turning kind of cloudy on the outside here. I was telling you guys about the sunshiny day we're having, but I should probably adjust my lighting here on the camera. So hopefully that's better. My luck, the sun will probably peek through again, and then I'll fade away with the brightness. Diane Cornett says, what kind of cookware do you use? It looks like it's easy to clean and doesn't stick. Yeah, I have a Towncraft set. Towncraft, I think it's called. And a lot of the handles are missing. I should just take the time to, order some new ones. I don't know why I don't get around to it. I think a lot of the pieces have been that way for years, but I like it. Although I have been tempted to buy that, I think it's called Caraway Cookware. I'm curious if any of you guys have that. It's like it's supposed to be a healthy non-stick, not like your Teflon, but more, it looks like Teflon, but kind of non-stick on the inside, and then kind of ceramic on the outside. They have some pretty colors. I really thought about investing in a set. So if any of you guys have it, I'd be curious if you like it or not. I also have my cast iron pan, like the black, big, heavy cast iron pan that I use. I'm not sure what I use in the video, but that's also a favorite of mine. G. Garza says, have you all ever thought to get chickens? Seems you would be a good mommy to them, and you have a lovely place for them and would provide you plenty of eggs for all that good cooking. Yes, I have thought about it. Just recently, even I think I was telling my sister about it, how neat that would be. We even have an area where if I'd have one of those portable little houses on wheels, I could move them from one spot to the next, to graze. And it just now started to sprinkle. Not sure, should I move my camera inside or not? I just did not know it was supposed to rain today. But yeah, chickens would be awesome to have. Maybe someday. I think at this time I have enough on my plate, because I'm pretty sure I would end up taking care of them. So getting to the bottom comment on that video, it was Linda Kirk saying, was that really maple syrup and mustard you put with mayo for a dressing? I think I eat so much less sugar than you do. I don't call the subs a main meal, though they did look nice. Good to see a different type of video. Thanks. Actually, that was honey that I put to that dressing. One of my favorite salad dressings is just the 3 ingredients, mayonnaise, mustard, and honey. It's just so simple to put together, and I like the flavor of it. And then as far as eating less sugar than I do, I'm sure you do. I'm still not where I'd want to be with that. But I gotta tell you guys, I used to eat so much sugar or sweets, growing up. And even, I would say maybe 10 to 12 years ago is when I started to I clamped down and just tried to cook healthier. And If I use sugar, I try to do the pure cane sugar or the sucanat or succanat. And then also I use some stevia, but I still use probably more sugar than I should at times. But I gotta say, like years ago, I was probably kind of addicted to sweets, almost embarrassed to say it, but kind of goes to show if you train yourself to eat a certain way, you don't even crave it as much. I'm quick to say now, something is actually almost too sweet to eat. I'm just not used to it anymore. So I feel like I'm on a path to getting better with that, but probably still not where I could be. And then as far as subs for a main meal, to me, they're a main meal. I have my vegetables and meat, bread, all in one kind of. Sometimes I'll add maybe French fries or some kind of potatoes with subs, but for us, we're good with just the sub. So the next questions are from the Spring Kitchen and Dining Room Refresh. Heather Melanson says, would you consider putting wallpaper on the back of your hutch where you just painted white and doing the same for the back of your part of your cupboards to match? I think it would look pretty and add just a nice touch of some pattern for you. Something on the soft tones, maybe to pull in the green from elsewhere. That is a really good idea. I did debate that. Then after I put the blue dishes in the hutch, I thought that would almost be too busy with another design behind that. But it's definitely something I consider, someday. And I've also thought about doing it on the open cupboards, which I assume that's what you're talking about here. The open cupboards there by the sink. I tell you guys, the sun's out again. I guess it's one of those days. I guess that's one con with not having a camera person behind the camera. I need to kind of do my own adjusting. Probably got it too dark there, but I'll stop fussing about it now. Wendy Hand says, I love your channel. Your ideas are so inspirational. Thank you. May I ask what video editing software you use for your YouTube videos, please? Yeah, I use the Adobe Premiere Elements. It's kind of the cheaper version. They actually have another pro version. It's a little more pricey, but it probably does a lot more. But for what I need to do with my videos, the Premiere Elements is just fine. Sheila London says, I love the shelf with the valance rod above the window in your dining area. Did you make it? If so, is there a video of it? Yes, I did make it, and no, there isn't a video. It was years ago when I put it up there. In fact, I was Amish at the time, so of course I didn't have access to making a video of it. But it was really simple, basically just adding a board and then the little holder things to kind of hold it in place. Yeah, nothing too fancy. I'm sure you could make something like that too. Lacey LaPlante says, I live for Wednesdays when I can watch your videos. Your kitties made me laugh so much in this video. So cute. I have a question about the white you use in your home. Do you try to stay consistent with the same tint of white? I also have a lot of white in my home, but some whites look dirty next to another white. Do you have the same struggles? We do have a lot of different shades of white in our home, and I do get asked that a lot, if that, what kind of whites I use. And to me, that does not really bother me if I have the different shades, and even if one kind of looks, like you say, kind of dirty next to maybe a stark white. I don't mind that. I like any shades of white together, but I can see where that could, bother some people. In fact, in the past, if I wanted to, maybe paint a wall white and didn't have quite enough of the one color, I would just mix them all together, any whites I had on hand. So some of the whites in our home don't even really have a name, but as long as it was white, I didn't mind if it didn't match my other whites. Terry Chancellor says, love your spring refresh. I have the exact same dining chairs, and I'm thinking they would look so much better black like yours. What paint did you use, since it seems to hold up very well? Actually, those chairs were black to begin with. I think there was a set of 8 that I had bought years ago. It's probably been maybe 20 years that I've had them. And I ended up at one stage, I ended up painting 4 of them white. So we do somewhere around here, we have 4 white ones floating around. And in that case, I had used Annie Sloan chalk paint. I remember it was one of the first projects that I had used Annie Sloan paint. And they really turned out nice, and they held up really well too. So I think, chalk paint is always a good option to use if you're painting something that will get a lot of use, like a kitchen chair. But yeah, the black that I have now, I thought black kind of went better with the white table. I kind of like the contrast of that, so I switched them out, the white ones with the black ones. And I do know I applied a wax over the ones that I painted white. That really helps with preserving the paint and just giving a nice, smooth, hard surface. Athena Jeffries says, Mary, have you seen the hack of getting wall-mounted lights and gluing in button lights that have a remote? Huh, that's interesting. I've never seen that or heard of that. That would be maybe closer to what you were looking for. The YouTuber Do It On a Dime, which that's a YouTube channel, just posted a video not too long ago with this hack. You should go see it. I'll have to check that out. I like that idea. That way you wouldn't have to contend with a cord or trying to wire your light into the wall. D. Cessna says, Mary, your brushes always look new. Do you use a new brush each time? Absolutely not. I'm actually known to use my brushes for years sometimes. Do you have a favorite brand of brush, and how do you wash them and keep them looking like new? I often go for the Do It Best brand paintbrush. They have a nice slanted one that I like. And then also Worcester has a brush that I buy sometimes. They're, you know, nicely priced. They're not like really expensive and not really, kind of in between. And then as far as keeping them clean, I just wash them until there's no trace of paint coming out of them. I'm known to stand in front of the sink for a long time washing brushes. I just love the idea. The next time that I grab the brush, it's, you know, nice and soft and not stiff with paint. In fact, I've had people sometimes help me maybe with a paint cleanup where they, you know, wash my brushes for me, and I admit after they're done I kind of wash them again, and I'm just known to there can't be any trace of paint coming out of them. If there is, that will somehow stiffen up the brush and you can't use it again. And they're expensive enough that I don't want to just invest in a new brush every time I paint, which that would be, you know, quite often, of course. So getting to the bottom comment from that video, it's actually in Spanish, and I thought when I saw it I know what that's saying, but I made sure and did the translation, and it is simply saying in Spanish. And I assume you're maybe asking for a video in Spanish instead of English, and surprisingly I actually get a lot of requests for that, but other languages. And I'm not sure, is there a way that I could, as a YouTuber, kind of convert or translate my videos into another language or not? I guess I should check more into that, but I'm kind of assuming it wouldn't be an easy feat, but I guess I should, you know, see about it, because I realize a lot of people that have the same interest as I do would of course not understand what I'm saying. You know, they'd speak another language. So but yeah, that happened to be the bottom comment, so I thought I would address it. Next questions are from the booth setup video. Gina Maria says, love everything, water feature is beautiful. Do you have a video on how to make one of these? I had actually done a video on the water feature that is on our front porch. It was kind of early on here and on this channel. I'm always kind of hesitant to send people to some of those early videos, especially kind of cringe when I watch them, but maybe you can get something out of it. I'll try to link it, you know, down below in case you want to check it out. But I do have another water feature idea coming up here this spring or early summer. Hopefully I'll try to get a video on that and share that with you. I feel like I could possibly do a better job of doing a tutorial video on a water feature than what I did a couple years ago. Oh, guys, just now a groundhog ran right in front of the door here. I do have one living under this shed. Her name's Sadie. I kind of name some of my animals around here, and she is really, really fat. Sometimes I see her grazing here in the backyard, and I'll try to get a picture of her on the screen here if I can find one, but she is really quite healthy looking and kind of cute for a groundhog. Martha Lewis says, will you have a booth at the Vintage Fair in June? Not planning on having a booth, but I do have an exciting announcement coming up regarding that fair. I can't talk about it just yet, but stay tuned. Probably maybe mid-May or so I will be making the announcement. Kind of excited for it. RGV Texas says, I was just curious if you have ever had anyone ask you why there is not much color other than white in the things you sell. I didn't know if White Cottage Company had anything to do with it or not. I do get asked that sometimes, you know, why I just paint everything white that I sell. It is a bestseller. That's the main reason I paint it white. Sometimes I'll paint something black or gray. I try to stay neutral for the items that I sell. Now and then I'll do a different color, maybe green or blue. Those just don't sell as well. I've even had people that buy a piece and they say that they're going to take it home and maybe paint it white. I know once you have everything together, let's say you're getting ready for a fair or want to fill a booth at the antique mall or whatever, put everything together, it's just going to look really white and maybe kind of bland to some people. But you just have to imagine, you know, every piece is going to a different home, and white is going to be what fits in best for the most part. I do like pieces that are, you know, a natural wood too, or just a stained wood if it's a nice color. but as far as if I want to redo a piece of furniture that, you know, the stain isn't nice anymore, I'll just, yeah, often paint it white because that's what sells best. Dee Dee Green says, why do you leave your truck running while you load? That is a good question. In fact, that's one I asked myself when I was editing the video. I thought, why in the world did I not shut the truck off? To be honest, I really like to hear that truck. I like to hear a diesel engine, but that was no reason to keep it running, and it was kind of aimed at the camera. It was really loud. But yeah, next time I'll probably shut it off. I just wasn't thinking, I guess. I don't know, can you guys hear the rain on the roof? It sounds so nice. Makes me think of taking a nap. The bottom comment from this video, Jim Coons says, why do you feel so pressured to do YouTube, Etsy, mall antiques? Life is short. It seems like you put so much pressure on yourself all the time. Relax. Who do you have to show approval to with your Mennonite background? God is king. I agree. God is king. And as far as feeling pressured, I do not feel pressured one bit. I assure you, I love what I'm doing. It really makes me busy. It keeps me going, but I like to be busy. That's probably when I am my happiest, actually. I don't feel like I'm putting pressure on myself at all. It might seem that way to people, but I really don't. I almost feel like, I don't know, would you call it a calling to do what I'm doing, because I love it so much. And if I would feel that God would be calling me in another direction, I definitely would drop everything if I feel that way. But for now, I feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing. So this comment kind of reminded me of something. I shouldn't even be quoting this because I don't know the exact quote. I should probably look it up. Maybe I'll even put it on the screen. But I don't know, are you guys familiar with Irma Bombeck? I may have mentioned this before on my channel, but I am a huge fan of her. She is not living anymore, but she has some good books out there if you're at all interested in very humorous writing. She had this quote, something along the lines of, she never wants to stand in front of her maker and be told that she didn't do everything that she was intended for here on earth. Something along that line. I'll try to throw the quote on the screen, but in other words, she wants to use all of her talents and her gifts that God gave her and inspire people down here and not have any of them go to waste and just not do it, if that makes sense. But again, it'll make more sense if you read it from her. JB says, she's asking about the pump fountain. Is it attached to the furniture piece? I did not see a cord or pump. Yeah, the pump is actually hidden inside the piece of furniture. I guess I should have explained that more. It's an electric cord that runs out of the one drawer, kind of in the back. I have an old pump and would love to set it up very simply, and love how this one looks. Also love your creativity. Thanks to MB also. I would like to have an MB in my life. Oh yeah, you would like that. I could not be without her. I have said this many times on my channel already, but she is basically what keeps the Etsy shop running. And I have really learned to, it's really hard for me to delegate work. I really learned to just let her do a lot of the things. That way I can be more free to make my videos and kind of take care of this end of things, I guess. But she is a big blessing. Aw. So the last questions are from the spring cleanup video that I had just done, actually back here in the backyard. First question is, Nancy Wilcox says, what kind of mulch is this? It's a leaf and bark combination. I usually try to go with that kind. I don't like the idea of just doing the bark. I feel like my plants need just a little bit more than just bark mulch. Lisa McCoy says, how do you keep deer from eating tulips? They kind of leave my gardens alone, surprisingly. We have some deer in the area, but I feel like they probably have enough back here in the woods to eat that they kind of leave them be. I know one year I had some issues with a few of the tulips being chewed off. Julia Simmerman says, I want all of your leaves for composting. How do you water all of your flowers? First of all, here in Ohio, we generally have enough rainfall that we don't need to do a lot of watering, although, knock on wood as I say that, because sometimes we'll have dry summers where I do end up, doing some watering, but usually just set up the sprinkler or yeah, that's often how I do it. Just set up the sprinkler and try to remember to keep it rotated. And then as far as wanting my leaves for composting, I know we have all of these leaves around here, and I realize I should probably do a better job of using them for compost or mulch. I did get some comments on that about the leaves that I took out of the pond. I think those would have made for a really good mulch for my plants. And I still have them back in the woods. I could still probably go get them. Patty K says, Mary, does your body ever ache after all of the work you do? My back hurts just watching you. I do get stiff and sore sometimes depending on what I do, especially if it's, using muscles that I haven't used in a while, but for the most part I'm blessed to be able to just keep working, and I think the more I keep moving the better it actually is. So coming to the bottom comment from that video, it's Multipoo's Off-Grid saying, the frogs hibernate in the leaves you took out. Yes, they do, and I did not get all of the leaves. Maybe I didn't make it clear in that video, but I tried to get what I could, but there was definitely still some leaves and dirt in the bottom for my frogs. And I think I did mention that, though, that I prefer that, even if it's more of a dirty pond, I prefer that over a crystal clear pool because I know that's what my frogs want. So that concludes today's questions. I need to go in and eat my lunch. I see it's way past my lunchtime. Hopefully you guys didn't hear my stomach growling. It does that pretty bad sometimes. It's been at it for the last half hour. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate all of you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.